we want to spend the beginning of this show talking about the Titans offensive line. And it is related, of course, to the Colts matchup. But I wanted to give you guys something that we think, hopefully, you check back on at the end of the season and say, oh, those two knuckleheads were right about this. And that is sort of the strategy to deploy these players in the offensive line. And some context here, of course, those who don't know, NPF back on the practice field this week. Nicholas Petit-Frere, their third-round pick, 5-star recruit at Ohio State, who started 16 out of 17 games last season at right tackle. He is back because the suspension for the NFL went from 6 games down to 4 games. So he's back. Dylan Radins, a couple of weeks now, he's been starting at left guard since the Chargers game, filling in for Peter Skoronski, who's out with the appendectomy. Peter Skoronski back at practice this week. Don't know if he's fully up to his weight that he needs to be in power and strength and everything after the issue, but that is what it is. I think that one's pretty self-explanatory. So we're going to work our way through what we think the Titans will do along the offensive line, not just for this weekend's game against the Colts, but long-term, and then what we think they should do.
Different answers.
Yeah, I'm going to start with the easiest one here, which is what I think they're going to do.
Sure.
Which is they ain't going to do a damn thing.
Not this week. Nope.
They're going to run the same 5 guys out there. I think it's going to be and if Skoronski, with the caveat that if Skoronski is fully ready to go,
that's the asterisk,
he will be the starter. But do you think that they actually do anything? Again, we'll get to what we think they should do, but do you think they actually do anything different along the offensive line?
This week, no, absolutely not. There's no reason to. It would be forcing it. You get NPF back, but he's been away from the team, away from practice for, let's see, it was supposed to be 6 weeks, now 4 weeks, right? He's back. I'm sure he's done a decent job staying conditioned and in the weight room and everything, but he's, even if he was perfectly ready to go, it sounds like Mike Vrabel, kind of a coy answer on him on Monday in that press conference where he's like, I like what Chris Moore's doing at right tackle. Not typically the warm welcome back that you see from him. Kyle Phillips, in contrast, yesterday, he's asked about Kyle Phillips coming back. It's the typical line. We're excited to have Kyle back, playmaker. Can't wait to get him back involved in the offense. With NPF, it's kind of like what Chris Moore's doing at right tackle, which was
Chris Hubbard.
What am I saying? Chris Moore. Yeah. Chris Hubbard at right tackle. And I think that was his way of kind of sending the message, hey, you got to earn this spot back. You messed up. You lost it. And Chris Hubbard has been serviceable at right tackle. And so, especially based on, it'd be a different story if at the end of last year, MPF was a guy that looked like you could trust him on an island at the tackle position, but he deteriorated down the stretch. And so coming into the season, the whole idea was, well, maybe he takes that year 2 leap. Maybe he becomes the guy that they can go ahead and write in pen, this is our tackle on the right side of the future. He's going to have to earn that spot back. I do think he does eventually, but this week, no. Like you said, Skoronski, if he somehow is miraculously from last week unable to even practice to this week back to appropriate weight and strength and like feels ready to go, then you slot him in. He is in fact your best lineman. So you do that. I'm kind of with you. I think I'd be really surprised if that's the case.
I think Vrabel tends to be conservative when it comes to, that's why it was so surprising that they pulled Xavier Newman-Johnson out of the lineups after 2 drives in that week 2 game, filling in for Skoronski. They went right to Radins.
If Vrabel yanks you quick, you're doing a bad job.
Yes, like bad, you are.
Bad.
Yes, very, very bad. And so my prediction is that the starting offensive line for now stays the same, with the caveat being Skoronski. Of course, he'll be back in as soon as they deem him medically fit and power, with the strength and the weight and everything ready to go.
And so Skoronski's the only one that we know will, like, the changes we're about to talk about are all maybes. Skoronski will change, right? Like as soon as he's, you don't think so?
No. I think yes, absolutely. He will be.
Is there another one you think that they for sure will change?
Yes. Absolutely.
Okay, well then let's get into that.
Which gets right into what I think should happen.
Okay.
And I think MPF has this fascinating, like, the perception of how he played last year. Like, offensive line, number one, offensive line as a position is having a difficult time at all levels of football. Offensive lines in the NFL, offensive lines at SEC football, highest levels of college, high school. I don't think they're being developed as well as they have been in the past. Next year's offensive line class does look very strong according to how they've played so far. But we're talking about, at that point, the top 8 to 10 players of 133 college football teams plus FCS and Division II. So you're talking about the top 1% of 1% that looks great. That's fine. That's not indicative of how the position is playing at whole. So
it doesn't help that every big freak athlete developing through the ranks of football is being put on the defensive line, right?
Because you got to attack the quarterback somehow now.
Yep.
And it's just a difficult, like if you I've talked to so many coaches about this, NFL and college over the years, the toughest position to recruit and draft at both college and NFL levels to develop is the offensive line. It's just the bust rate is higher for offensive linemen than anywhere else. You'll see coaches take, because it's so hard to see a guy's body develop, especially from 18 years old to 22, and then from 22 to 26. It's just hard to see what the skills are. Whereas here's the other element to this: 7-on-7 drills and tournaments that take place 12 months a year are why receivers are so evolved, and why corners are so evolved, and why quarterbacks and tight ends are so evolved, and running backs. You don't get the trench warfare 12 months a year in football, NFL or college or high school. So it takes a long time for these guys to develop. Long way of landing my NPF plane here, which is that I think he actually showed me everything I needed to see from a 3rd round pick with pedigree to be a starting lineman in the NFL. I saw some good. I saw some bad. I saw a little inconsistency. I saw a rookie wall, but I saw upside. I saw that all that stuff's what I wanted out of MPF last year.
Yep.
To me, this is what this is what I think they should do. Dillard is number 1 in the NFL in sacks allowed, number 4 in pressures allowed.
Not great.
He is as bad as Dennis Daly currently, and I know he just came off his best game, but he is. To me, I don't need to see any more. He was one of the few guys. I was one of the few people all summer saying, why are people just assuming Andre Dillard is going to do the job? And I think I've seen enough for them to give someone else a chance. But here's the other part of the reason I think this is why I think 2 positions will be changed. Maybe not this week, but soon. NPF and Skoronski were the left tackle and left guard in practice this week.
Yes, they were.
As one of the pairings. The other one, of course, was Andre Dillard and Dylan Radins. I don't think Dylan Radins is going to be left tackle material. I think, here's what I think is going to happen. Because I think Chris Hubbard, to your point, has earned the right to stay at right tackle for now.
I think, for now. And I don't even know if I believe that when I say it. I'm actually lower on his play than most people. I think barely he has. But sure, let's roll with that. It sounds like the Titans think so.
Continuity. They're giving him help. They know how to manage his skills. He's a veteran. He is what he is. So here's what I think should happen slowly but surely. Number 1, Skoronski's back in at left guard. Whenever he's ready, boom, he's back in. Then I want an NPF Dillard Radins competition at left tackle, which I think Dylan Radins will not win. And I think it's going to end up being NPF versus Dillard at left tackle. And I think NPF's going to end up being the better player. So I think NPF ends up at left tackle, which is what I want to see them do. I just want to see them battle in practice, in a game. Just show us, see what it looks like. And maybe NPF's not ready week 1 to be physically up to speed. Maybe it needs to be week 2 next week. Ravens, bye week, who knows? Then I want to see Radins eventually move over to right tackle and take Chris Hubbard's job if and when the Chris Hubbard thing starts to go the wrong direction. I mean, and it's not a reach to say that that's going to happen at some point throughout the season, right? Like, they've had to help him a lot. He's been okay. There's a chance it goes the opposite direction.
Big injury. I mean, like he was a guy that before this season really didn't have a recent pedigree of playing more than I forget what it was, like 5 games in a row. Like he couldn't stay on the field consistently with his health, and so I'm actually more inclined to say he's a veteran. As long as he's healthy, you'll get this steady, mediocre level of play. But I don't think it'll last forever. He's bound to get hurt.
So if you combine all of this with the bye week coming up after 2 more games, with the tight ends being better and better at blocking as the season has gone along, this is a factor in all of this, is that the tight ends are starting to show up a little bit more in sort of win rates at both pass and run blocking.
Yep.
What I want to see coming back from the bye week and no later is Nicholas Petit-Frere at left tackle, Peter Skoronski at left guard, Aaron Brewer at center, Daniel Brunskill at right guard, Dylan Radins at right tackle. Chris Hubbard and Andre Dillard are your first 2 off the bench as swing players that can do a bunch of different things, with tight ends chipping on both tackles if you need to. That is what I think is the best 5 offensive line for the Titans, and I think gives them the best chance to win as many games down the stretch as possible. Your thoughts?
I'm about it. I say try it. There is an alternative version of that. I'm gonna use the same puzzle pieces and kind of mix and match a little bit that I think that you could make a strong argument for. I'm of split mind as to which of the two. I'm not going to pretend I know this one will be better than that. I think either of these things would be a welcome change, and they may not be perfect 5 for 5, but I do want to see these guys in these roles. I question Dylan Radin's ability to play tackle in general. I know we have a little sample size of him doing that at the NFL level in relief over the past couple of years, and he's done an admirable job. However, you watch on tape, and I listen. This is the most important part. What I see is this, but then more importantly, I hear it from folks that I actually trust as offensive line evaluators more than me, because I'm not going to sit here and pretend I'm an expert on these things. He doesn't have the best requisite skill set to play tackle at the NFL level, not in terms of physical strength or physical measurements, but he's got kind of a similar profile to Dillard in the sense that his anchor's not great. He's not the strongest player in the world. His punch is pretty weak. He's I think at best as a tackle, he will be like we talk about with Dillard, backing up into the pocket and absorbing pass rushers, then punching and creating space. Can that work? Like, can you work with that? Sure. But it's not really a plus player. I have been on this train since March, and I think you're aware that I've been on this train since March. Peter Skoronski deserves a chance to cook outside.
Wow.
Let him try.
It ain't gonna happen.
I know they're not going to. So that's this is why I'm going to continue to preach it. And the only way maybe it happens is because of injuries. I think there is a scenario in which you get to an injured state, not wishing this on the team, where you kind of have to. But I really do think if you this would be the 5 that I'm arguing for from left to right: Skoronski, Radins, Brewer, Brunskill, NPF. Part of the reasoning here is I do question NPF's ability to play on the left side. We always hear about it's kind of rare for a guy to be as talented on one side as he is on the other. It's really not as simple as it is on paper as simple as mirroring everything you're doing, but physically it's a difficult thing to get in your body. And a lot of times guys have a strength on one side or the other. In college, we saw NPF play on the right side and the left side, and he was significantly better on the right side. That's why he came in and the Titans put him on the right side. Could he play left tackle? Sure. And he did it in college and he was fine. I think if he does end up being their solution there this season, which is not crazy based on what we saw in practice this week, that may take a little bit for him to not have some real bust plays. I think that opens the door for that to happen. And so I don't love the idea. I love the idea of replacing Dillard with anybody on the left side. So there are levels to this, right? Replace him with MPF. Sure, I'm about it, because it is an improvement, but does it make it a good left side situation? I don't know about that.
That's literally what I was about to say, which is what makes MPF. I agree with you on Radins being he doesn't have sort of left tackle anchor tackle ability. I think he's better than Hubbard at right tackle. I think he's an upgrade slightly. So I think he's got more. I think he's got enough athletic ability, and he's young enough to be good in that spot, or better than Hubbard. I don't necessarily agree with you on Skoronski. I think he is sort of a tried and true guard, and this is where I don't like going all the way back to high school recruiting rankings. It's not what I'm not using that as to lean on this and say that's why MPF will be good.
Sure.
And that's why. But Skoronski was, again, #1 interior offensive lineman coming out of high school, 5-star prospect, was the best interior offensive lineman during his career at Northwestern, was the #1 interior guard drafted in the draft. He is already grading out in his first game, played one game in the NFL, grading out as one of the better guards in the NFL. He is a guard, and I think he's going to play left guard for 10 years for this team. It doesn't mean
I actually agree, and I'll let you finish, but I have a response to this.
It doesn't mean he doesn't deserve a chance, and I'm okay if they try it. That's fine, because Dillard might be bad enough that they need to try something. And D-Good says this. Those are your best 5: MPF, Skoronski, Brewer, Brunskill, Radins. We kind of agree with that.
We all agree on the 5. It's the order, right?
It's where they go. And NPF was... there are certain guys that have left tackle pedigree, and MPF had left tackle pedigree his entire career. Mm-hmm. He had left tackle pedigree at Ohio State. He had left tackle pedigree as a recruit. He had left tackle pedigree in practice this week.
True.
because Tim Kelly said today, I believe he said, I'm comfortable with MPF playing both sides. Maybe not this week, but I think the entire point of taking NPF in the 3rd round is to get him used to NFL football, get him up to speed as a right tackle for maybe 2 seasons, maybe 1 season, whatever it takes, And then he is the guy who has the upside and athletic talent that few people have to play left tackle. And if you need to help him out, maybe it takes 2 years to get to a point where he's a true starting left tackle in the NFL above average. That may be the journey that we're on here. Is he better today than Andre Dillard? He may not be good. He may not be upper half of the NFL.
Right.
But he's probably better than Dillard.
Relative terms, baby. Better is a relative term.
So I don't think if you have a coaching staff, you don't come out and say, yes, you're as good at left side and right side. I trust you on both sides. You certainly don't practice him on the left side if you're not going to at least see if he can do it. And I think that is why, again, I would say throw him out there now. Because if like the Colts have a pretty decent defensive line, we'll get into the matchup in a second. But you get 2 games to learn. You get 2 games of film against 2 pretty good defensive fronts in Indianapolis and Baltimore. Then you get a bye week to sort of recalibrate everything. And I think that serves you better in the last 2 months of the season, is to get out, even if you struggle and lose, because as we're going to talk about, if this Titans team wins on Sunday and beats the Colts, they are, in my opinion, based on my expectations alone, ahead of schedule already in 2023. So I think you've got some wiggle room here to let MPF learn for 2 games on the fly. That's just my opinion as a non-talent evaluator, just watching the team from the outside in. So there you go.
I agree with a lot of what you're saying, and we can move on from this conversation. The last thing I'll say about Skoronski, you used as your rebuttal to him playing outside, he is a guard. And I'm not even saying that I don't think he is. I'm pretty agnostic. I think that he has a better floor and ceiling as a guard than he does as a tackle. The reason behind me continuing to call for them to give him a shot has as much to do with what I think he's capable of as what the rest of this team is capable of.
Yeah.
And I'm of the belief he has the highest ceiling at left tackle of anybody that's currently on this roster. Maybe I'm too low on MPF's ability to switch back over to that left side. Like you said, he has pedigree. Year 2, maybe he makes that leap and is able to translate to the left side where he's played before. But if what I think is going to be the case with him is the case with him, I'm of the belief that your best option at the most important position on the line is Peter Skoronski. Again, we're talking about relative terms here. Best does not mean good.
Right.
Maybe he is a shaky league average, slightly below league average left tackle. But a fundamental philosophy that I know is talked about a lot on this show, on Music City Audible, on Hot Read Podcast, on Football and Other F Words. You cannot in the NFL really week over week, long term, be viable as a team with a problem at both tackle positions. You have to be decent, at least at one. And that's kind of that's where I'm trying to get with this team as I'm mentally trying to fix the puzzle pieces. How can I get to where I can consistently slide help to one end of my line, because I know the other one will at least be decent enough to handle things on their own.
Yeah. And I agree with that. And I do think in general, if you have such a massive hole, you need to try everything you got.
Yes.
And if that includes,
I'm all for, as you said in the past, try shit, right? Just every week, mix and match. Let's until something works.
I think
banging your head against the wall.
I think if you want to do it like in simple, like Madden terms, like just to try to understand the math of it all. And I think this is a point that other people have made. And like if Skoronski is an 86 left guard, but a 78 left tackle, well, if you move him to left tackle, you might be devaluing 2 positions because MPF, you see what I'm saying? Like sure. Raden's is a drop off at left guard and Skoronski's a drop off at left tackle. So you might be devaluing 2 positions, even though you might be a little bit more balanced.
That's fair.
Do you want like an 89 left guard and a 75 left tackle?
However,
versus two 80s.
That's operating under the assumption that they're going to go with your full. Like, I think that what is likely to happen long term with this team this season, that is they do a little bit of what you're wanting to see. You know, like you've got a lot of orders of operation in your changes. You know, let's move MPF to the left side. Let's move Raidens from the left interior to the right exterior. Let's get Skoronski back in there. That's, the devaluing of 2 positions is under the assumption that you're not taking Raidens out of the lineup entirely. You are moving him to that tackle spot. I think it's very fair that he may be the guy on the bench. And then you know what I mean? The math changes.
Yeah. I think so. It's funny you say order of operation, because that's like literally what I wrote down. Like number 1 is Hubbard stays put for now. And 1A is Skoronski's in when available. And those two, so basically from left guard to right tackle is all the same for me.
Right.
It's to me, it's then you have Radens, NPF, and Dillard battling for left tackle.
Yes.
See which cream rises to the top.
Sure.
And then at that point, you go back to right tackle order of operation and say, all right, Chris Hubbard versus loser of left tackle battle, right? Like,
right.
If MPF wins the job, then great. I think that's what you want as a Titans fan, is for him to sit there for this year and to learn and to get better and to develop. And if you need to put Raider or Wesco or whoever over there to help him chip with Spears, great. And then if Radens can take some of the pressure off having to help Hubbard, even better. So, but like that is exactly what it is.
Completely agree. That's the order. On the right side of your ship, you've got water seeping in slowly through the cracks. On the left side, you have a cannonball-sized hole with water gushing, and you need to address that first.
Yeah, that's exactly right. A good Pirates of the Caribbean reference to end the conversation.